Sri Lanka's most powerful news brand.
Hello, good evening and a very warm welcome to the Hot Seat. And yes, it's been a rather hot week with the launch of the release of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the Issuance of Bonds by the Central Bank report. And this evening in the Hot Seat is Dr. W.A. Wijewardena, the former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Very good evening, Dr. Wijewardena.
Good evening, Faraz. Good evening.
Big sigh of relief now that the...
Well, what has happened, Faraz, is that people had been waiting for the release of the report by the Special Presidential Commission of Inquiry to public domain. And now it has happened. And you can download it from the website of the President's Secretary.
Yes.
But of course, there's a big traffic there, and it takes time for you to reach even the website. But that might be cleared pretty soon, and now it is in the hands of the people of this country, and they can read through it. Unfortunately, it has not been translated into Sinhala or Tamil so far. Therefore, it will be an exclusive preserve of the English-speaking people in this country.
Now, that's a problem.
Yeah.
But they must be working on the...
No, it's a very difficult thing for us because the report itself runs into 1,300 pages.
Plus the annexures.
Annexures also about another 1,000 pages.
Wow.
And it takes, long period of time for you to put them into English and Sinhala. What the media can do for us is that they can educate the members of the public who read only Sinhala and Tamil in those two particular languages, summary of what the Bond Commission has presented.
A lot of people, there's widespread public concern and so on. So now the report's out, but the real work is beginning now, isn't it? Because
real work actually begins now because the Commission has, in its report, recommended that the Attorney General's Department or the Commission for Bribery or Corruption will have to take action in order to recover the money and also take the people who have been named in the Commission report as people who had been involved in the particular scam to courts of law. So it's the new actual real action will start now for us.
And so we live in interesting times. But Dr. Wijewardena, you've spent a career, what, 38 years there?
36 years.
36 years at the Central Bank. Are you quietly grateful to someone, whoever, for not having worked under what must be easily the most disgraced governor in the history of Sri Lanka's Central Bank?
Well, in my case, far as I have worked under 7 governors,
yeah.
But I can very confidently say that none of these governors had descended to this depth to which the former governor Arjuna Mahindan had fallen.
Because the report, the Commission's report on his activities there, it's so absolutely clear. They say that he had acted with an ulterior purpose, mala fide, and so on and so forth. There's a devastating report on him, and they hold him responsible for several things, including the avoidable loss of 688 million rupees, then the 8.5 billion elsewhere, the EPF and so on.
Yeah.
The fine is twice that amount. So it looks like he's going to have 2 times 8.5 plus twice 688. So that's about 1.3 billion there, and the total comes to about around 18 billion rupees. That's with a B. Do you think that he's ever going to be pursued? And I mean, he's out of the country.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on how far the Attorney General's Department would be able to take all the people, not only Governor Arjuna Mahendran but also the other people in the perpetual treasuries, to courts and get the courts to have a conviction of these people. And then of course the President has already said that he will even introduce new laws to recover this money. It's unlikely that a person single-handedly can pay this 18 billion that you have mentioned. So he will have to end up in jail if he cannot pay that money.
Sad day for Sri Lanka when the top job, the central bank governor, is, everybody, as far as I know, everybody respected the governor of the central bank, and it was a plum job. It carried with it respect, and you were representing your country in a different, completely different from being an ambassador or a minister or anything like that. It must be a sad day when you're...
I mean, it's actually something the country will have to avoid in the future, Farad, because here what had happened is, according to the findings of the Presidential Commission, Governor Arjuna Mahendran and another senior officer, Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, had been misleading even the Prime Minister of the country.
That's absolutely shameful.
And they have said that Prime Minister shouldn't have listened to these two people who had bad intention of misleading Prime Minister, giving wrong information to him without verifying from an independent source, which is correct. Because the one good example is when they told Prime Minister that the direct placements were all evil and ominous. They had actually not given the correct picture to Prime Minister, because the direct placements were introduced by the Central Bank in 1997, and they were introduced with a good purpose. The good purpose is that even though the competition and the auctions are the best for a country, if the auctions can generate good results only if there is competition. But in the case of the government securities market, for us, we don't have a competitive market. We have an oligopolistic market where there are 14 or 15 primary dealers, and they can always get together. Few of them can get together and they can corner the market. To prevent that possibility, in 1997, when the primary dealer system was introduced, the governor S. Jayawardena, he said that whenever there is evidence that the primary dealers were attempting to increase the interest rates of the country, you should not accept them at the auction. Instead, you must go for a direct placement. So
so you can control the rate.
That's the weapon which the central bank had to shoot at the primary dealers if they are misbehaving.
In fact, it then adds even further credibility to the claim, part of which has been recognized by the Commission, that Arjuna Mahendran had been under-advising, to be polite, the Prime Minister.
Not under-advising. I mean, the Commissioner had said he had misreported. Not under-advising. It actually, he had given false information to the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister's guilt, according to the Commission report, is that it was unfortunate that Prime Minister did not verify it from an independent source.
Right. Yeah. And that actually is unforgivable, because after all, Ranil Wickremesinghe is one of the most seasoned politicians in Parliament, 40 years in parliamentary politics, is a qualified lawyer, and has the distinguished record of being 4 times Prime Minister of this country.
In fact, far as now the Commission report very clearly says the briefing that was read by Prime Minister in Parliament had been sent to Prime Minister's secretary via email by the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank, who was acting as the Governor at that particular point of time. And it's the Deputy Governor who had actually misled the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister had read it in Parliament, and now you can see some of the things that he said in Parliament and what he told the Commission under oath in an affidavit are contradictory to each other.
On that note, we're going to take a short break. Don't go away. After all, this is The Hot Seat. Welcome back to the hot seat. In the hot seat today is Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena, former Deputy Governor at Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Now then, Dr. Vijayawardena, this Deputy Governor, this is the same Deputy Governor that the media have been naming and shaming for a while. And it is the same Deputy Governor, is it not, who has been inducted towards the Ministry of either the Finance Ministry or one of the ministries to provide evidence on to provide I think it was to advise them on some new thing that they want to do. What credibility is there? What's wrong with these people? We had a governor who was had a clear conflict of interest, and the president didn't give him a new term or a term of his own, and yet he was then taken around on state tours advising whoever it was. The Ministry of Finance issued a letter saying, no, he doesn't work for us, or he doesn't consult for us, or whatever it is, in whichever, because this English language is so quaint, you've got different ways of describing things. But nevertheless, there he was for all the world to see. The cameras captured him everywhere. Keith Tennakoon had documents to show that he had attended state meetings and so on. Now, it's the same thing happening to this Deputy Governor. He's now retired. But at one stage they said that, oh, there were errors of judgment, not amounting to wrongdoing. But the commissioners, 2 Supreme Court judges and 1 deputy, retired Deputy Auditor General, didn't agree. They said that they gave a devastating account of what this fellow did. And he's still very much advising. What's going on?
Well, I think in the future the government will have to be careful for us. I mean, what has happened has already happened.
Indeed.
It was actually a mistake in the judgment. But now I feel that after the report is out, the government will have, wiser counsel and will avoid repeating the same mistake.
It's so very sad because especially when our network's always calling for professionalism at government, and to leave your friends alone, friends and the old school network alone, because the government, this country, is not your personal property. It belongs to the people of the country, and the people expect you, especially when they elect you, to act within reason and with some professionalism. And these people have completely let the side down. And this governor, this deputy governor, has not only let down the rest of the side, but he's let down his own colleagues. Because surely any central banker, retired or present, cannot possibly feel proud of what went on.
In fact, in my view, far as what has happened is that they had not followed the correct procedure, because it's true that Governor Mahendran had given them some illegal and irregular instruction. But the system within the central bank is that even when the governor gives such an illegal instruction, they will document it and they will resubmit to the governor, asking him to change his view. In this particular instance, according to the commission report, it has not happened in the central bank, and they have simply become these yielding hands to whatever the schemes that had been in mind in former Governor Arjuna Mahendran. The central bank top officers have become yielding hands. So that's what the commission had found fault with the top management. So this is a learning exercise for all of the people who are present in the central bank, because even after 10 years, they are liable to be, called before a commission and then answer whatever the action they have taken. So they have to be careful now.
So even in your retirement, if you'd done something wrong, I know you haven't, but if you had, even in your retirement, you've got that.
Yeah, I mean, if it is investigated, there is a possibility. Yes, we have to be careful. We have to be careful.
Have you got anything that you think you've done that you may expect a knock early morning on your door?
No, far as what happens is, now when you run a central bank, you have to make choices based on the best information available and for the best situation of the country, and therefore you have to take lots of risk. For example, deciding on the exchange rate of the country is such a thing, and the central bank people would do so by taking a great risk, but based on what is best for the country at that particular point of time. So likewise, after 10 years, anybody can, charge you, challenge you, dispute you, but you have to go back to the situation where you were in that particular point of time when you made that choice.
It's all very sad, really. I've got a different question for you, slightly away from this, but connected. Considering the outcome of the Bond Commission report, do you think the public will have any confidence in another commission that would perhaps look into EPF transactions in the stock exchange from 2010 onwards?
They have. I mean, definitely they have, Farad, because it will also, because the Employees Provident Fund, there are more than 6 million members.
Yeah.
And the working population has placed its trust in the Monetary Board for protecting and saving their hard-earned savings for their old age. So if there has been any misuse of the funds in the EPF, definitely another commission would reveal what has happened, and it will warn the current administration as well as the future administrations of EPF to be careful when they invest their monies belonging to other people.
I see. I see. The Commission report says the EPF knowingly acquired shares which would result in EPF losses. How come the central bank didn't take any action?
That's the problem. I mean, the governance structure at the EPF has weakened during that particular period, and as a result, a few people had been able to play a role which they were not supposed to play for us.
Right.
So that is why it had been, not come to the light, and also the Commission has found fault with the EPF administration also for. Because even at the instance of the Monetary Board, there had been 2 inquiries done by the EPF administration about these irregular practices, and the report submitted had been a very juicy one according to the Commission, very vague one, and they had not found anything, and they have said there has not been anything. So that is why when Governor Mahendran was the head, and when you have a governor there, the EPF people had also been scared of coming up with a proper investigation. So that is why it is necessary that it should be investigated by an outside commission.
On that note, we'll take a short break. Don't go away. After all, this is the Hot Seat. Welcome back to the Hot Seat. In the Hot Seat, Dr. W.A. Wijewardena, former Deputy Governor, Central Bank of Sri Lanka, discussing today the Bond Commission report and matters associated with that. The Commission also called for a forensic audit on placements of bonds between 2008 and 14. And the Central Bank has clarified it and said that this will be conducted by an external party. What does this mean?
That means for us now, from 2008 to 2014, the system used by the Public Debt Department to issue treasury bond had been placing them directly with the primary dealers instead of using the auction system, and there was a good reason for the Public Debt Department to do that. Because the 2008 and 2009 country was engaged in a war. Inflation rate was running at around 20 to 22%, and as a result interest rates were also rising in the market. It had given a good opportunity for primary dealers to get together and increase the interest rate structure of the country, which was not beneficial at that time for the economy.
Right.
Because of that reason, the central bank had rejected the bonds that had been bids that had been placed by primary dealers at the auctions, and instead they have placed them at around the prevailing market rate with the primary dealers, which you call the direct placements. And there there had been an accusation that there had been irregularity when they did so, and also the former Minister of Finance, Mr. Raikaruna Naik, he had asked the Auditor General to examine and report on that. The Auditor General had submitted a special report where the Auditor General has said about 90% of the bonds issued during that period had been by using the direct placement method. But of course, Auditor General has said, in fairness to the central bank, 57% of those bonds had been issued on average at prices higher than the prevailing market price, which means that anyone who had bought those bonds under the direct placement system does not stand to benefit by selling it in the market, because he had bought at a higher price and he had to sell it at a lower price. So as a result, it had been, Auditor General has conclusively said, it has been to the benefit of the government, because that had been the best method of minimizing the cost to the government. But of course, if someone feels that there had been an irregularity or scam of the nature that we had in the last 2-year period, it is always beneficial that you do an forensic audit. And what the central bank has said is, since the local 4 audit firms have connections to various parties, they have said that they will engage an outside party to do the forensic audit, and it is very easy to do that for us, because the every treasury bond that is issued has a unique identification number like your NIC, which is called International Securities Identification Number, ISIN. So once the bond has been purchased from the primary auction by someone, it is recorded under that ISIN in his name. Then it is sold to another person, it is the ISIN that is recorded. So therefore, you have the trail. So that is,
and it should be very easy.
To find out whether there has been an irregularity.
Are you looking forward to this report?
Well, I think the central bank has announced that they will engage somebody, outside party, and also they have said very correctly, central bank had announced in another press release last 2 days ago that it is not proper for the central bank to make any comment on that until it gets the forensic audit report.
More reports to look forward to.
More reports. I mean, more reports, more money. I mean, to engage a foreign audit firm to do this job for us, you have to spend a huge amount of money.
Any ideas how much?
I mean, it may be around $1 million to $2 million US.
Wow.
Large amount of money.
Large amount of money indeed. Terrible. But as you said at some point, this is the start, isn't it? This is the start of the recovery process.
In fact, what the Commission report has said for us is that it has asked the law enforcement agencies, namely the Auditor General's Department, Attorney General's Department, and also the Bribery or Corruption Commission to take action. So we are starting action right now. The game is not yet over.
Indeed. Dr. W. Vijayawardena, it's an absolute pleasure having you on our program, but it's also been a great pleasure having you on our network, and it all started after this terrible tragedy about the bonds. So the bonds have not only cost the country money, but it has affected people in different sort of ways and touched people in different sort of ways. And one of those good things that came out of it is that we got to know you. Thank you very much.
You are welcome.
And that's about it from the hot seat this week. Take care and good night.